Does anyone have a question? I mean, questions are really good. They always add a whole dimension to the class. If you have a question, don't be afraid to ask it.
Stuart, I have a question. This is Linda.
Yes, Linda.
In your Lotus Flower book, you speak about the importance of unconditional giving and receiving. And I was wondering if you could talk about that a little bit.
You know, yes, yeah, this is really an important element in not only a spiritual life, but in just learning to live here on a human level. Life requires giving and receiving. You know, you go to the grocery store, you got to give money in order to get food. You got to pay rent in order to have a place to sleep, or mortgage payments. But everything in life is really giving and receiving. And yet, when we have to give, you know, it's often done with resentment, with anger, you know, feeling like other people are taking advantage of us. And there isn't that kind of unconditional aspect of a human being that says, here, thank you. Here, thank you. You know, this is not an encumbrance. This is giving me a place to live. This is putting food in my mouth. I mean, even these classes, you know, once a month I send out my begging bowl, you know, asking people to make contributions. And there are people that have been coming here for years that never found the strength inside themselves to make a $5 a class contribution. And I think that to me is a pretty extraordinary thing, that somehow they're entitled to attend these classes and never to contribute anything. And I think that's almost a scary proposition, because nothing inside them has grown enough to feel true gratitude. True gratitude is not lip service gratitude. It is being willing to give something in life that says, thank you. Unconditional giving is really one of the great keys to spiritual development, because, you know, we have to let go, we have to surrender, you know, and ultimately we all have to let go of everything. And yet people are so protective of, you know, the little that they have or the great abundance that they have, you know, with no thought in their brain that this ever comes to an end. It ever comes to an end. And that builds something I think that's very dangerous, and that's entitlement. You know, where people somehow feel they are entitled to take in life, but never have to give anything unconditionally. And I think that this is really a very important and deep element to living in the world. It's like Rudy once told me, you know, the best you can do is be a servant of God and a servant of your teacher or of your students. And I think this is unconditional giving, unconditional humility, unconditional saying, I'm grateful, I'm thankful. It's not coming to me. I'm not playing the role of God here, but I am willing to give unconditionally. And it's, you know, and I think this is one of the most essential ingredients in life, you know, because without learning how to give unconditionally and to receive unconditionally, you know, I mean, I learned that from Rudy also. I remember once I gave him a present. When I lived in Morocco, I bought this caftan, kind of a rust orange caftan that I really used to like, you know, and I gave it to Rudy as a present, you know, just went into a store, here, this, I want to give you this. I really like this thing. I purchased it in Morocco when I lived there. And one day in Big Indian, I'm walking in the hallway and a friend of mine comes up. You'll never guess the gift that Rudy gave me. So he pulls out that caftan. You know, and he shows it to me, wraps it around, and it taught me that the gift was given. It no longer belongs to me. I don't possess it, and it will find its way through the world. And it taught me, that little act taught me so much about giving unconditionally. Because sometimes when we give, we try to possess people. You know, people that nonstop giving and giving and give, you know, and through giving, they try to control the lives of other people. That is not unconditional giving. It is not unconditional gratitude. It's not unconditional anything. It's trying to control the life of another human being. So unconditional giving is really an essential ingredient. And you can't give unconditionally unless you can receive unconditionally. You know, that you're not entitled, it's not coming to you. But there's so much gratitude in your heart and love that it really demands of one to give and return back unconditionally, to grow enough to say thank you, but not lip service gratitude. Thank you through your actions, what you do, what you contribute, how, you know, what you are learning has really helped you to grow in your life. And all of that is an essential ingredient. And it's something that, you know, most people don't learn. Because most giving and receiving is about controlling. It's about entitlement. It's about, you know, not, you know, saying thank you from the center of your heart out of gratitude. So yes, this is very important. And nobody's going to truly grow in this meditation through entitlement. I really mean this. You grow because, you know, you master your inner life. You build a system that is capable of contributing to the world something really important and wonderful that's deep inside you. You know, it's like love, you know, love is not about possessing another human being. Love is about freeing other people. And you can't free people unless you love them unconditionally. But most of love in the world we live in is about possessing people. And in the giving people the freedom to explore their lives, you understand, there's responsibility. Understand, we don't hurt people. We don't, you know, do things that really emotionally and mentally damage other people. Out of gratitude that people can be in our lives and we can love them and we can contribute to their lives. And, you know, things like money are, I mean, they're a freaking nightmare in how they paralyze people. Instead of getting big enough inside to turn money into energy and be big enough inside to receive, you know, quantities of money and not be trapped by it. People are so paralyzed by money, you know, that they live on spiritual welfare. Instead of growing inside where this is no longer a problem. I need to get big enough to where this is no longer a problem. I mean, I hope this is clear to all of you because most of life is about learning how to give and receive. And most of life is learning how not to be a victim of life, but to be able to do life unconditionally with love, with gratitude, with compassion, and not being a victim of the economics of the world, living on some kind of economic and spiritual welfare that, that we think protects us from the world. It doesn't. It just cripples us inside. One of the things I was always afraid of years ago was living in a rent-controlled apartment. I mean this. And, very few people in New York will ever tell you this because the rents are staggering. But I was always afraid that I would be controlled. And I used to meet people that were living in the same freaking apartment for 35 years because it was rent controlled and it was cheap. Now that to me was always a scary proposition, especially when I was younger, And somebody once said to me, I rented this loft on 4th Avenue. It was more than twice the amount of rent I was paying in my other loft. Oh my God, doesn't it frighten? I said, I'll sell another couple of paintings every month and pay for it, I said, I will get big enough to where this will become small. This will not be, something that's going to paralyze me paying, this amount of money every month to some landlord. And yet most of life is the exact opposite. And spiritually, it's like that. People live on spiritual welfare. They don't think they need to contribute anything. And they come, and look, these classes are very indicative of that because I never chase anybody. Everybody's welcome, whether you, contribute anything every month or not. But there's got to be something that's big enough in people to finally get past spiritual welfare, economic welfare, to where they're capable of truly dealing and giving to life unconditionally and being strong enough to do these things, building a chakra system that allows one to live that way. And where you're not trapped by money either, Most wealthy people are living a financial prison. And I know that because I've known enough wealthy people in my life. Because basically the business I used to run had to deal with very wealthy people. And they were living in financial prisons. Emotional prisons where people possess each other emotionally. Instead of with unconditional love for each other that allows each other to respect each other, to never do anything to hurt each other, and to give other people the freedom to find their lives. I hope this is clear because this is such an important ingredient in the development of an inner life. And mostly it's about getting free of oneself. We create these insane conditions and we imprison ourselves in these insane conditions. But there should be no need for it. We just got to build an inner life that is strong enough to free ourselves of these things. Very good question, Linda. Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask?
Stuart, I have a question, Bob Sink.
Yes, Bob.
Could you speak about the unconditional receiving of things that are not comfortable.
Bob, look, let's get down to the basic reality of this. Most people are not terribly conscious people. And they give, it's like I was talking, they give anger, they give resentment, they try to control us. They can't stand if we're free. And there's jealousy, which is one of the biggest and most horrible things we have to receive from other people. And I've known enough of that in my life from, so many people that I eventually I had capacity to just allow it bounce off me and I didn't care, All of these things are negative energies that people project towards us, mostly because they're terribly unconscious people. They're frightened people, they're insecure people. And I've seen it with spiritual teachers. God knows I won't get into what I have been through with spiritual teachers. And a lot of people ask me why I don't get involved with all these I don't get involved because of all the stuff I've been through. And I'd much rather have my own dialogue with God and try to grow inside myself and to contribute to the lives of other people, the things that I've learned, without having to go through all the jealousy and the stuff. I mean, I'm telling you this stuff. But one of the things I've learned is, it gets into you because you allow it to get into you. One hasn't built a system inside that's strong enough to be able to transform somebody else's jealousy, somebody else's anger, somebody else's greed into chi, into Shakti, into an energy that nurtures you instead of allowing it to go into your gut like a corkscrew and rip you apart. So these people are really your teachers. They're telling you, you haven't developed enough of a capacity yet to be able to transform their bullshit into something that really can nurture you inside, something that can really help you to grow inside yourself. And when I began to realize that this was the case, my whole life changed, Bob. Honestly, I mean, all the jealousy and the bullshit I used to have to put up with from people, the gossiping, and how many people had their hands and noses in my life, and many of them trying to tear my life apart. It finally came to, Stuart, are you strong enough to deal with this? Or are you going to spend the rest of your life being eaten alive by these people? And I started building that kind of a system that enabled all of that bullshit to just bounce off of me. It was not going to interfere with my spiritual practice, with my growth, with my connection to God, and with the work that I have to do in the world. And I think that's the case. It depends on how you see all this stuff. I used to take it personally when I was younger, and it used to eat me alive. It would kill me. And at one point I said, no, Stuart, you have to get stronger. You have to build an inner life that doesn't allow this madness, this nonsense, especially people's jealousy, and people's vindictiveness to interfere with your spiritual growth. And they're not going to do it for you. You have to do it for yourself to build that kind of inner life. And you can, when people project that bullshit at you, you can receive it unconditionally because it instantly becomes chi and it becomes power inside you and is no longer a negative quantity that's eating you alive. I mean, I used to hear Rudy talk about this, when I've told my classical story about me and the bartender a million times, you know, but it was really a learning lesson for me, that experience. I don't know, you know, I used to work as a waiter in a restaurant, and there was a bartender there. Who I couldn't go up and say, give me a martini without having a fight with this guy. His very presence used to just like chalk on a blackboard. It used to drive me crazy. I mean, and I'll never forget, one day I'm standing at the bar and he's talking to another waiter about meeting his girlfriend at midnight to have a midnight breakfast. And it so blew me away that this guy could have a girlfriend, that this guy, anybody could get close. This woman would sleep with him, wake up in the same bed with him, go to bed with him at night. I mean, this woman, I had so much respect for her that she could do that, that she became like a saint in my head, you know? And I really mean this. And I finally started looking at this guy and I began to see a human being instead of chalk on the blackboard. I began to see somebody who also struggling with his life. And I, you know, never became a great friend with him, but we became friends. I used to stand at the bar and talk to him, have conversations with him. And it was what Rudy was teaching me. You know, you got to build an inner life that doesn't allow other people's, you know, tension and craziness to rip you apart. And then you begin to see the humanity in them, you know? Doesn't mean you have to hang out with them and spend time with them, but it no longer eats you alive. So other people are there to teach us about our weakness and the things that we need to work on. I mean, I said this, you know, I remember Rudy telling me he couldn't pay a therapist $1,000 an hour, you know, to point out the things that are wrong with him that his mother points out for nothing in 5 seconds. Teaching me what I have to work on inside myself. Huh? Never forget that. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask?
Thank you.
You're welcome. I mean, it's a very difficult thing in the world today because so many young people grow up today feeling entitled. You know, it's really very difficult. When I was a kid, man, you went out and earned your own living, you made your own way, you weren't entitled to anything. You wanted to have an apartment, you learned how to support yourself. Yes, things were cheaper then, but it was still difficult. You had to work. You weren't entitled to anything, you know? You know, we live in a different world today. The young people, there's so much entitlement. I see it with even my daughter's friends, what they, you know, the parents just, you know, anyway, I don't want to get into it. And it's, you know, really raising a generation of, it's going to be, God knows, you know, this generation has to somehow, sometime in the future, take care of the world. Does anyone else have a question? Okay, well, you know, there'll be a meditation tomorrow evening. Thank you, and bless you for being here, for asking these questions you asked, for demanding of me to go really deep in myself, to nurture you and to get nurtured myself. So thank you and God bless you. And I'm looking forward to seeing everyone tomorrow.
Thank you very much, Stuart.
Thank you, Stuart. Thank you.